In late 1939, the Soviet Union launched a massive invasion of Finland, confident that superior numbers would quickly overwhelm the small Nordic nation. Instead of collapsing, Finnish forces adapted quickly, using terrain, weather, and discipline to launch unexpected counterattacks against overextended Soviet units. The defense of Helsinki became a symbol of national survival, as soldiers and civilians together halted Soviet advances at the very gates of the capital. Finnish commanders exploited frozen lakes and forests, isolating Soviet columns, cutting supply lines, and forcing demoralized troops into chaotic retreats. Ski troops struck swiftly at night, disappearing into blizzards, turning Finland's winter into a decisive weapon against invasion by Soviet forces. Captured equipment and intelligence reversed momentum, as Finnish units reused Soviet supplies to sustain relentless pressure across the front lines. International observers watched in disbelief, as reports confirmed the Red Army was being outmaneuvered by a smaller, determined defender nation. Soviet command failures compounded losses, with rigid tactics collapsing under flexible Finnish operations and unforgiving Arctic conditions throughout the winter campaign. By early 1940, Finnish counteroffensives pushed enemy lines backward, reclaiming territory once thought inevitably lost by Soviet planners entirely confidently. The battle for Helsinki intensified, yet coordinated air defenses and civil resilience denied the Soviets a symbolic victory decisively there. Facing stalemate and mounting casualties, Soviet leadership confronted the political cost of continuing an increasingly unpopular war abroad and domestically. Under international pressure, Moscow entered negotiations, seeking an exit that would limit humiliation and further military losses on all fronts. The resulting peace treaty preserved Finnish sovereignty, reshaping Northern European politics and altering expectations for the coming World War dramatically. News of the unexpected victory spread quickly, boosting Finnish morale and stunning foreign governments who had predicted inevitable Soviet success. Victory was marked not by triumphalism, but by solemn pride, honoring sacrifices made to defend independence against overwhelming odds. The Red Army withdrew under harsh conditions, leaving behind shattered equipment and a sobering lesson in underestimating determined defenders. Strategists across Europe reassessed Soviet military strength, reconsidering assumptions that would soon influence wider wartime planning. Germany and the Western Allies closely studied Finland's resistance, drawing conclusions about Soviet capabilities before future confrontations. Finland immediately reinforced its defenses, understanding that survival depended on preparedness, unity, and constant vigilance in uncertain times. Soldiers returned home, changed forever, carrying memories of brutal winter battles that would shape Finnish identity for generations. Inside the Soviet Union, the defeat was quietly reframed, masking strategic embarrassment beneath controlled narratives and official silence. Military theorists later cited Finland's campaign as proof that morale, adaptability, and terrain can offset numerical inferiority. This reversed history reminds us how small decisions and resilience can redirect the course of nations and world events. As winter faded, scars of conflict remained etched into the land, silent witnesses to a war that ended unexpectedly. Fallen soldiers were honored quietly, their sacrifices forming the unspoken foundation of Finland's preserved independence and future security. Political leaders shifted focus toward rebuilding, balancing vigilance with diplomacy in a Europe drifting toward wider war. Industry recovered rapidly, redirected toward defense and survival, reinforcing lessons learned during months of desperate fighting. Within the Red Army, reforms accelerated, driven by harsh lessons learned from failure against a smaller but adaptive opponent. Historians later debated how this altered outcome reshaped early perceptions of power on the eve of global conflict. In reality, Finland conceded territory, but in this reversed history, resilience rewrote the balance of fear and respect. Future generations learned this version of history as proof that national survival sometimes depends on courage more than numbers. Decades later, survivors remembered a winter when Finland stood alone, yet emerged sovereign against all expectations. History is not fixed. Under different choices and conditions, even the smallest nations can reshape the fate of empires. As spring arrived, the land revealed evidence of brutal fighting, reminding survivors how close Finland came to extinction. Civilian life slowly resumed, as communities rebuilt homes and livelihoods disrupted by months of relentless winter warfare. Finland's success reshaped Nordic diplomacy, strengthening regional cooperation and cautious alignment in a rapidly militarizing Europe. Along the border, Soviet forces adopted a defensive posture, wary of provoking another costly confrontation. Globally, the conflict altered perceptions, proving that aggression could fail when confronted by unity and strategic discipline. Training intensified, ensuring future generations of soldiers would inherit hard-earned knowledge from the Winter Campaign. In the Soviet Union, memorials quietly acknowledged sacrifice, even as official narratives avoided discussing defeat openly. The story entered national memory, taught to children as a lesson in resilience, unity, and responsibility. Peace returned to the forests, but the memory of war remained etched deeply into Finland's national consciousness. This imagined outcome invites reflection on how courage, leadership, and chance can alter history's seemingly inevitable paths. In the calm after war, Finland's landscape contrasted sharply with memories of chaos endured only months before. Diplomatic cables circulated worldwide, reassessing strategic assumptions about Soviet power and the resilience of smaller states. Veterans began recording their experiences, ensuring future generations would understand the cost behind the preserved independence. The stabilized border symbolized uneasy peace, a line defended not just by arms, but by hard-earned mutual caution. Cultural life flourished again, reinforcing national identity strengthened through shared hardship and collective survival. The Red Army institutionalized painful lessons, reshaping doctrine to avoid repeating humiliation against smaller, better adapted opponents. Finland's example encouraged Nordic coordination, subtly shifting regional security thinking on the eve of continental war. Military education evolved, embedding winter warfare expertise as a permanent pillar of national defense strategy. The war's end marked not triumph, but vigilance, as Finland guarded peace earned at extraordinary cost. This alternative history endures as a reminder that determination can bend events once thought inevitable. Restoring transportation networks became vital, reconnecting isolated regions and accelerating national recovery after the winter conflict. Intelligence reforms ensured Finland would never again face invasion unprepared or blind to shifting regional threats. Moscow sought to repair credibility abroad, carefully projecting restraint after a conflict that damaged its international reputation. State support helped rural communities recover quickly, preventing social collapse after prolonged mobilization and economic strain. Determined to avoid repetition, the Red Army drilled relentlessly, internalizing lessons learned from Finland's defiant resistance. Careful communication balanced pride with caution, reinforcing unity while avoiding provocations that might reignite hostilities. Neighboring states quietly studied Finland's defenses, adapting concepts suited to harsh climates and limited manpower. National remembrance acknowledged civilian suffering, reinforcing social cohesion and shared responsibility for the nation's survival. Silence inside Soviet leadership reflected unresolved tension, as consequences of failure lingered beneath official confidence. Guarding the frontier became routine again, yet vigilance remained constant after a winter that changed history. The gradual return of civilian movement marked the shift from total war footing to guarded peacetime normalcy. Parliamentary debates focused on security, ensuring lessons of survival translated into long-term national policy. Soviet observers cautiously re-engaged abroad, gathering insight while avoiding displays that might reveal lingering vulnerability. Infrastructure upgrades doubled as defense measures, enabling rapid mobilization should threats return unexpectedly. Academic circles analyzed the conflict, integrating real-world experience into emerging theories of modern warfare. Industrial priorities shifted, emphasizing logistics and climate readiness after costly miscalculations during the Finnish campaign. Civil defense education expanded, embedding preparedness into everyday life beyond the battlefield. Leadership decisions reflected caution, shaped by the memory of resistance that defied earlier expectations. Coastal vigilance complemented land defenses, ensuring sovereignty across every frontier and approach. The long twilight symbolized fragile peace, maintained through readiness, memory, and mutual restraint. Normal life cautiously returned, shaped by memories of danger and an unspoken awareness of how easily peace could vanish. Strategic reserves were expanded, ensuring Finland could sustain resistance longer if future crises emerged suddenly. Soviet redeployment signaled a shift in priorities. as leadership avoided renewed confrontation along Finland's hardened frontier. Finland's experience became a reference point across Scandinavia, influencing defense thinking beyond its borders. Reserve forces remained central, reinforcing the principle that national defense belonged to every citizen. Analytical focus turned outward as Soviet planners dissected failures to prevent similar embarrassments elsewhere. Preserving records became an act of defense itself, protecting memory from distortion or deliberate forgetting. Life near the frontier continued quietly, shaped by vigilance, learned through sacrifice rather than fear alone. Messaging softened, reflecting leadership awareness that credibility depended on restraint after unexpected defeat. Peace endured through preparedness, memory, and unity forged during a winter that reshaped history itself. Seasons changed, but the awareness born in war remained, shaping how Finns viewed peace and preparedness. Annual mobilization drills reinforced confidence that the nation could respond swiftly if threatened again. Strategic focus slowly shifted eastward as Soviet leadership recalibrated ambitions after costly misjudgment in the north. Maritime security gained importance, protecting supply routes and coastal sovereignty after wartime vulnerability was revealed. Globally, Finland's campaign entered military literature as a landmark example of asymmetric defense success. Despite calm appearances, caution defined Soviet posture, shaped by memory of unexpected resistance. First-hand stories reinforced shared identity, keeping lessons of sacrifice alive beyond official histories. Production priorities adapted, reflecting a strategic pivot rather than renewed northern confrontation. Military and civilian life intertwined, reinforcing a defense culture rooted in society itself. Finland moved forward cautiously, aware that survival depended on memory, readiness, and unity. Winter returned once more, but this time, Finland faced it stronger, wiser, and prepared by experience rather than fear alone. Defense planning matured, prioritizing flexibility and endurance, shaped directly by lessons paid for in blood.
Are the reserves in position?
Diplomatic restraint defined Moscow's approach, accepting limits imposed by resistance it could not easily overcome.
The snow is deep.
Veterans passed hard-earned knowledge forward, transforming survival experience into institutional strength for the nation. Finland's stand influenced broader security debates, subtly reshaping how power and resolve were measured internationally.
This invasion of Finland is
Within Soviet ranks, shaping future caution more than public admissions ever could. Collective memory lived in households, where stories of endurance reinforced national identity beyond official commemoration. The frontier remained quiet, defined by mutual awareness rather than trust, and guarded by memory. This reversed history underscores how determination, environment, and leadership can overturn assumptions of inevitability. In this imagined past, Finland endured, reminding history that even empires can be halted by resolve. The cycle of seasons continued, symbolizing continuity after crisis, and a nation quietly rebuilding strength beneath winter silence. Preparedness became routine, ensuring that surprise would never again favor an aggressor in the frozen north. Defeat fostered restraint, reshaping calculations that once assumed smaller neighbors could be coerced without consequence. Experience passed hand to hand, turning survival into doctrine and memory into structured national defense. Abroad, analysts revisited Finland's stand as a case where willpower disrupted assumed hierarchies of power. Caution replaced confidence along the frontier, shaped by memories of resistance that disproved easy victory. Remembrance anchored unity, ensuring sacrifice translated into responsibility rather than myth or complacency. Peace endured through awareness, not illusion, guarded by lessons learned in the harshest conditions imaginable. This reversed history concludes with Finland standing firm, a testament to resilience, reshaping destiny against overwhelming odds. History, even imagined, reminds us that courage and adaptation can halt empires and redefine what is considered inevitable.
Thanks for watching. If you found this journey into alternate history fascinating,